Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching. The channel's called Ratchet. My name's Andrew, and on this episode, I make myself an old school style expanding foam race car seat. Run the title. Like I say, I make myself a bespoke race car seat. So it is absolutely everything from forming the framework, pouring the seat foam, getting it trimmed up. It is the whole 9 yards. So I really do hope you enjoy this one because I enjoyed the journey. It was a really nice steep learning curve. So follow along with me and then check out the results at the end of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, then please consider doing so by hitting that button below, hit the bell icon and everything else that you're meant to do. It just helps that channel grow and gets this project out there and visible to anyone else that might like it and following along in my continual evolution of this car you see behind me. So I think that's pretty much everything. Let's get on with it. So I mucked around for a couple of hours with some cardboard, shaping up the base, giving the depth that I wanted, the height of the back that I was after, along with the side support, just to prove that the idea would work in theory before taking it any further. I jumped into AutoCAD and drew up my cardboard templates in far more detail, designing in some return lips that I was then planning to fold over to then form the structure. I got a quote for this work from the laser cutters, and it actually worked out far cheaper than if I was to buy the raw aluminium sheet and cut it all up myself. So this was an absolute no-brainer, especially due to the size of the sheets and the long, straight, accurate edges that I needed to have cut to make this all work and come together as I wanted it to. I popped over to the laser cutters today to pick up the parts for my seat, and here is one of them. So I've got the 2 hockey stick pieces and then the large flat sheet that will form the base and the back. And as you'd expect, they are exactly as per the design. The area that I've allowed to fold over, along with the little guiding tabs so I can align that on the bench, has all panned out as I needed it to. Now, because this is 3mm, there's no way my little homemade folder would cope with that thickness. So I'm just going to clamp it down over the corner of the bench and then massage it over with a few hammers, and I should get the result that I need. So I think let's get on with that. I really didn't know what to expect when starting to fold up this aluminium sheet. Obviously, I had a plan in my mind of how I wanted things to come together. And I must admit, it seems to be like it's going to be absolutely perfect for the job. When I get this thing fixed together, which I'll get onto in a few moments' time, it is going to be incredibly stout. So where I've got the folded tabs, they fit underneath, and let me just turn it round the back. So my plan is, let me turn the camera back round again. So my plan is to actually rivet this together for the purpose of the seat to form the frame for the expanding foam. I feel that the seat being riveted together, you know, we're talking maybe 70mm spacings for the rivets like I've used on the chassis, is going to make this thing fit for purpose. So I think that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to move on to, is refine the fit of the side panels and then start putting in a couple holes kind of at the top and the bottom of each of the panels, and then get it held together with some clecos, so then I can continue to massage the panels. I'd left this back panel long on purpose so I can then sort of just shape it so it fits perfectly to the side piece around here, and then just continue to refine it to a place where it's slowly shaping up and getting towards being able to get riveted together. Seeing the seat Cleco together and sat in its position, it was really starting to take shape. There was the relief cut out of the left-hand bolster for the water pump blister. One of the things that I hadn't accounted for was the fact that I had to trim down the right-hand bottom bolster because the actual gear linkage was fouling on the side. It was just one of those things, I think, from having a semi-rigid cardboard template through to a completely rigid aluminium frame. There just wasn't sufficient clearance. It's not to any detriment of the design. Once I was happy with the proof of concept and I'd not made any further glaring errors, I pulled the seat from the car and got it riveted together for the final time. That then allowed me to move on to the next stage, which was starting to make the bag for the expandable foam. It got to about that point in the video that I decided to actually pull that bag off the seat and remake one that was far longer. The previous one just didn't extend far enough above the seat, so when the foam travels up my back, there was a distinct possibility that the bag previously, the foam would have all spilt over the top and made an absolute mess. So what I'm looking at down in front of me, and I'll show you in a second, is the seat with bag take 2. It's far longer and will hopefully contain all of that foam. Now, the other point that I wanted to get onto was the fact of why I fixed the seat to that piece of wood. Now, some of you may have guessed, and the reason is because I don't want to pour the seat foam into the seat while the seat is in the car. What I did do when the seat was in the car the last time was just took some key measurements from the relationship of the pedals to the front of the seat and the position of the seat in terms of where it sits in the car in relation to the pedals. So I've now set the seat up on the floor with the same relationship of the pedals to the seat, same distance away, etc. So it will allow me to pour the foam into the bag. Should there be a mess, I'm going to protect the floor. I'm not risking messing up the car in any way. So I'm hoping that's a clever idea and will certainly take away from some of the stress and worry about messing the interior of the car up. I think I'm now in a position to start mixing up some foam and trying to get this thing done. Now, the actual foam itself, if we come over to the bench, you'll see that there's the little test pieces that I've done. This is the actual foam from Demon Tweaks. It's a 2-part polyurethane expandable seat foam. Anyway, let's get on with it and see what mess I can make. Okay, so the dust has settled. Let's have a look at the state of this seat. And I think from the first inspection, we are looking good. Good profile around the bum area and up around my back. You'll see that there's been a whole chunk of spillage. And yet, if I had a second person here, they could have held the bag up and infilled this area a little bit more. But until I get the seat trimmed, or until I get the foam trimmed in line with the seat top, I don't actually know how much of this is going to be staying. So I'm not overly fussed by that. I can always do a small little local pour in this low spot here where that didn't infill. And also possibly a little bit down this side bolster. And yeah, if I'm being really picky, over there on the other side. Now everything has set and cooled down, so I can pull this from the shell and then start trimming it up loosely and then see how we go from there. So after some work shaping up the foam and re-pouring a couple of very small areas up around that shoulder support and a couple down on the side bolsters just to make sure everything was a little bit more uniform, the seat itself has come together quite nicely and it fits like an absolute glove, as you would expect. So with the foam now shaped up, I've got a small little recess formed in the foamwork for the gear linkage. I'm now ready to move on to the finishing process. Now, what I plan to do is, because there are small little crinkles from the bag, is to line some of the seat with some very thin scrim foam that I've got. And then I'm going to get onto the finish, which might divide opinions, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But here you can see how it looks. I'm certainly happy with it, how it's finally come together after that initial sort of touch and go from when I initially pulled the bag off. It's really nice and comfy, so I'm hoping we are on the home stretch. As I mentioned previously, it was always my plan to line this with some scrim foam. Some of these areas have got a couple layers, and it just helped even up the entire form and add a very, very small amount of padding, certainly not much, but it gives me that nice sound shape in preparation for the final covering. It's covered in tape. What do you think about the outcome? Personally, I really like it. Obviously, that's why I chose to do it. Now, when I was looking into this little project, just Googling images and things of that nature, I found lots of 60s and 70s race cars that the seats that they had fitted were nothing more than trimmed with black duct tape. I wanted to go for a matte finish, like a sort of almost cloth finish. So over the scrim foam is a layer of black duct tape, and then over the top of that I've got this 2-inch wide cloth tape to give me this matte finish. Now, I've tried to incorporate a sort of design into the seat. It really was totally governed by the contours and how the tape sort of behaved around the various convex and concave curves. So I tried to put the tape on with as little tension as possible to try and rule out the risk of edges lifting. So when the seat gets hot, when it gets cold, the tape contracts, expands, etc. I'm more than expecting that this sort of seat design, this herringbone pattern that I've got running up and down the seat, may evolve slightly into more of a patchwork quilt as the seat evolves as I use the car. Now, in terms of comfort, you know, I think it goes without saying that this thing is so comfy. The support underneath my thighs, which is what I was really striving for, and the additional clearance from my knees to the underside of the dash, because I've got quite long legs, quite a short body, so my legs always felt quite cramped. And with the black fiberglass seats, they're always brushing the underside of the dash, and I knew I could do something better. And this third iteration of seat that has now been fitted into the car, so when the car was blue, it had those flat GT40 style seats that are very popular, that were incredibly uncomfortable on long journeys. The bottom of your back, the top of your backside would just be numb, and it was really unpleasant. The second iteration of the fiberglass bucket seats, they were so comfy, really supportive, but like I say, I couldn't quite get the right angle despite 3 iterations of seat mounts to get the angle of recline correct and the clearance of my knees to the underside of the dash. So let me show you inside what I'm talking about. So you can see here, with my Perfection socks, I've now got, you know, an inch or so clearance, maybe an inch and a half on the accelerator pedal to the underside of the dash, whereas with the fiberglass seat, they were just brushing, and it was enough to make it really annoying. So by doing this, it has panned out exactly as I'd hoped. So there we go, my 1960s inspired expandable foam race car seat. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been a steep learning curve for myself. If I ever was to do another one in another car in the future, there would be so many small little lessons and tips and bits and pieces that would help me create an even better seat than the one I've managed to cobble together this time around. Up until the next episode, I'll catch you next time.